February 17, 1967 began beneath a low ceiling of gray clouds hanging over New Orleans, and before the noon-hour district attorney, Jim Garrison stepped before a dense wall of microphones and declared that the assassination of John F. Kennedy had been the result of a conspiracy. The room inside the old criminal courts building was tight with cigarette smoke and anticipation. Reporters pressed forward, shoes scraping against the tile floor, flashbulbs bursting in sharp bursts of white light. Garrison stood tall, broad-shouldered, deliberate. His voice did not rise. He said his office had uncovered evidence that powerful interests were involved in the crime in Dallas. He said the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone did not withstand careful examination. In that moment, he crossed from local prosecutor into national controversy, and the direction of his life narrowed into a single unyielding pursuit. James Carruthers Garrison had been born Erling Carruthers Garrison on November 20th, 1921, in Denison, Iowa. He was the first child and only son of Erling R. Garrison and Jane Ann Robinson. His parents separated before his 6th birthday, and his mother moved him and his sisters south to New Orleans. The city carried a different rhythm from Iowa, a mixture of ceremony and calculation, of charm and power moving quietly behind doors. He attended Alsace Fortier High School and graduated in 1939. He was tall, serious, and competitive, already drawn to structure and argument. A year before the attack on Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the Army Air Forces. During the Second World War, he flew low-altitude reconnaissance missions over France and Germany in small aircraft known as grasshoppers, directing artillery fire while flying close enough to the ground to see individual trees and rooftops. Enemy fire rose toward him in sudden flashes. Casualties among such pilots were common. His artillery unit became one of the first American forces to arrive at the liberation of the Dachau concentration camp, where the physical evidence of cruelty confronted him without filter. After the war, he entered Tulane University Law School, earning a Bachelor of Laws degree in 1949 and later completing a Master of Civil Laws. He briefly joined the firm Deutsch, Kerrigan & Stiles before entering the Federal Bureau of Investigation, serving in Seattle and Tacoma. He eventually returned to Louisiana, entered politics as a Democrat, and in 1962 was elected District Attorney of Orleans Parish. 3 years later, the memory of Dallas remained unsettled. The Warren Commission had concluded that Oswald alone fired the shots that killed President Kennedy. 2 days after the assassination, Oswald himself had been shot in police custody by Jack Ruby, a killing broadcast live to the nation. The official report provided a structured explanation, yet in New Orleans, certain threads appeared incomplete. Oswald had lived in the city during the summer of 1963. He had distributed pro-Castro leaflets in public while maintaining contact with anti-Castro activists. The spark came from information provided by private investigator Jack Martin, who alleged that a former pilot named David Ferry had spoken angrily about Kennedy and might have been connected to the assassination. Ferry had known Oswald. He had flown missions related to anti-Castro activity and associated with men who operated in the margins between civilian life and covert operations. Garrison reopened local files and assigned investigators to re-interview witnesses. The work was methodical, conducted in small offices where ceiling fans turned slowly and the sound of typewriters marked the passing hours. In February 1967, shortly after Garrison's public announcement, Ferry was found dead in his apartment. The coroner ruled a brain aneurysm. 2 typed notes were discovered near his body. The timing intensified suspicion inside the district attorney's office. Investigators redirected attention toward Clay Shaw, director of the International Trade Mart and a respected civic figure. Witnesses alleged that Shaw used the alias Clem Bertrand, a name that had surfaced when Oswald requested legal counsel after his arrest. On March 1, 1967, Garrison had Shaw arrested and charged with conspiracy to assassinate President Kennedy. It was the only prosecution ever brought in connection with the crime. National reaction escalated rapidly. Major newspapers questioned Garrison's judgment. Editorials portrayed the case as speculative. Television commentators dissected his statements. Federal authorities denied involvement. Garrison asserted that the evidence pointed toward a network that included elements of the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI, the Pentagon, and organized crime. He argued that Kennedy's evolving policies toward Cuba and Vietnam had threatened entrenched interests. He suggested that individuals aligned with the administration of Lyndon B. Johnson had benefited politically from the change in leadership, though he did not accuse Johnson of direct participation. Television appearances followed. In May 1967, Garrison appeared on ABC's Issues and Answers to defend his inquiry. In July, he received airtime on NBC to respond to criticism. He dismissed the Warren Report as deeply flawed and insisted that Kennedy had been killed by men seeking a dramatic shift in foreign policy. His tone was firm, his gaze direct into the camera. Supporters viewed him as courageous. Critics described him as reckless. The prosecution centered on testimony from Perry Russo, a 25-year-old insurance salesman from Baton Rouge. Russo testified that he attended a gathering at Ferry's apartment where Shaw, Oswald, and Ferry discussed killing the president, including the concept of triangulated crossfire and the creation of alibis. His testimony painted a vivid picture of planning and coordination. Yet controversy emerged when it became known that Russo had undergone hypnosis and had been administered sodium pentothal during questioning. Critics argued that such methods could shape memory. An earlier memorandum prepared by Assistant District Attorney Andrew Sambra did not mention an assassination discussion. Garrison maintained that independent verification methods, including polygraph examinations, were used responsibly and that no improper suggestions occurred. Russo continued to stand by his account in later years. In January 1968, Garrison subpoenaed Carrie Wendell Thornley, who had known Oswald during their time in the Marines, to testify before a grand jury. Thornley denied meaningful contact with Oswald after 1959. Garrison later charged him with perjury. The charge was eventually dismissed by his successor, Harry Connick Sr. The inquiry expanded into military associations and intelligence backgrounds, drawing attention far beyond Louisiana. Comedian Mort Saul helped secure Garrison an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, where he spoke about the assassination before a national late-night audience. As the trial approached, Garrison sought to bring tangible evidence into the courtroom. He subpoenaed the Zapruder film from Life magazine. The motion picture, recorded by Abraham Zapruder on November 22, 1963, had rarely been shown in full. In the New Orleans courtroom, jurors watched the film frame by frame. The president's motorcade moved slowly through Dealey Plaza. The shots were visible in silent sequence. Copies were made by investigator Steve Jaffe working with Garrison's office. In 2015, Jaffe's daughter would release his preserved copy along with personal papers from the investigation, adding further documentation to the historical record. The trial of Clay Shaw began in January 1969 before a packed courtroom. Garrison presented witnesses linking Shaw to Ferry and Oswald and argued that a covert circle intersected with intelligence operations. The defense attacked inconsistencies, challenged credibility, and emphasized the absence of physical evidence tying Shaw to the shooting in Dallas. Cross-examination was precise and relentless. Witnesses were pressed on dates, locations, and memory. The tension in the courtroom was constant. After weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. Less than 1 hour later, the jurors returned a unanimous verdict of not guilty. Shaw left the courtroom free. The swiftness of deliberation underscored the challenge of proving conspiracy beyond a reasonable doubt. The acquittal did not end the controversy. Garrison continued to argue that the assassination involved coordinated action among multiple actors. He later published On the Trail of the Assassins, asserting that Kennedy's intention to reduce involvement in Vietnam and pursue dialogue with adversaries had alarmed powerful factions within defense and intelligence institutions. His critics viewed the argument as conjecture. His supporters believed he had confronted uncomfortable possibilities. In 1973, Garrison faced his own legal battle when he was tried on bribery charges unrelated to the Kennedy case. During the proceedings, tape recordings from March 1971 were introduced. On those recordings, Garrison discussed the possibility of publicly implicating former United States Air Force General Charles Cable, who had served as deputy director of the CIA. Cable was the brother of Earl Cable, mayor of Dallas at the time of the assassination. The recordings suggested the breadth of Garrison's suspicions regarding institutional involvement. He was acquitted of the bribery charges. After leaving the office of district attorney in 1973, Garrison later served as a judge on the Louisiana Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal. His work involved routine appellate review, yet public memory remained fixed on his earlier confrontation with the federal narrative. In 1991, director Oliver Stone released the film JFK, dramatizing Garrison's investigation and presenting it to a new generation. The film renewed national debate and contributed to legislative efforts that expanded access to assassination-related documents. Jim Garrison died on October 21, 1992. His life had included combat flights over Europe, the liberation of Dachau, legal study at Tulane Federal Investigative Service in the Pacific Northwest, years as district attorney, and service on the appellate bench. Yet the image most closely associated with him remains that February day in 1967 when he faced a wall of cameras and declared that the case was not closed. His defining act was the decision to challenge the official account and to assert publicly that the assassination of a president may have involved forces beyond a single gunman. Whether judged as bold or misguided, he ensured that the questions surrounding November 22, 1963 would endure, woven into the ongoing examination of power, secrecy, and accountability in American history.